بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه ومن والاه. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, all praise belong to Allah, and may the peace, blessings, salutations of Allah be upon His Prophet Muhammad, his household, his companions, his followers, and all those who befriend him. This video is broadcast to you from the page, "And man said, let us make God in our own image and likeness." The title for this video is Man, God, Religion. Well, I'm going to speak about man, God, religion, and man's destiny. Before the internet and before communication became so easy, man has been separate in his continents, at his home, and the only way to connect was telephones, broadcasting, TV broadcasting, and satellite. And it was a thing when it happened. Most probably it was recorded and sent, and it was not being witnessed online. Now there are cameras everywhere on the street. You can spot something and know what is happening, and it is easily, man is being more having less difficulty in connecting and knowing. This has brought men more closer to each other, and everything that is happening in one place is recorded and known, and could be known in another place instantaneously. And likewise, ideas are being transported so fast. Even the ancient ones are revived, and they have endorsers and people like those who are saying that the earth is still flat. What I want to say that now there is a representative, literal representation what is happening now on earth as a theater. And if we monitor, or if we look at earth as a stage of a theater, now every literally everything that is happening, and everything that man could conceive and believe and perform and live, the way he thinks and the way he displays his thoughts and the way he lives is literally being represented, honestly, could be honestly represented online instantaneously. What I meant to say that every thought and every belief now has access to be known and to be on a wide scale, without an excuse that to say that I never heard about that. Chances of learning great events have become narrow, that they would not be known. Not like before, when even now it is with the satellites and with the scanning of the earth, it is quite remote and impossible to say that there are still primitive communities living in isolation, unless we leave them there on purpose. but what I want to say that every human activity is literally could be literally monitored even by by thermal and detection and energy detection. So what I want to say now is that when what makes man have different beliefs of God, or where is God to man? Where is God, and what is God, and what is how does man conceive of God? If we go to the history, but now I'm going to jump like a flash forward and come and start from right at the end. And the end is that the final revelation or final great religion, or the last, the most recent great religion that has appeared is Islam. And the book of Islam is the claimed word of God. And in that book, God addresses man, and he informs him that he is the creator of heaven and the earth, and Adam as the first creature, first human being, and that he has taught Adam everything, including, of course, he himself being God, or Allah, as he is named in the Quran and in Arabic. Allah has taught Adam the meanings and the use of language, and he gave him and he also taught him monotheism, that God is one and only creator. He's the sole creator of the universe, and the sole creator of the heavens and the earth and all that is between them, including angels and Adam himself. So how come, that is to say that Adam knew his God? How come there are atheists now, and how come there are believers in different God deities, and how come there are many gods or many deities and many how come man came to believe in different persons or different beings that are worthy from his point of view of being worshipped, and what is his conception of worship itself, and why does it differs from one religion to another, from one faith to another? What is considered worshipping in one religion would not be considered, or might not be considered as an act of worship in another faith or to another faith. How come this how come man became so belief in how come men's belief became so anarchic, and how come they suffered so much anarchy, and there is unsteadiness in their belief? Well, I'm not going to go into the details that might exhaust. There is, of course, an academic and well-researched and comprehensive answer to how man came to differ and came to disbelieve or believe. how come they يعني there could be a comprehensive and scientific and approach to trying to understand how religion developed in the mind of the human being. How come we say that when we try to monitor or to review the development of religion historically, if we say prehistoric, before man invented writing, that is when he could record his thoughts and incidents and events, and therefore leave us a record, and this is called history. So before he became able to express his thoughts and leave us his experience, whether they are feelings, beliefs, in the form of art or otherwise, then before this is all called prehistoric. So history begins practically, or conventionally history begins with man being able to write. So if you're going to trace the development of the human mind and his beliefs and his worship, we find that man needed his need for God, belief in a supreme, all-powerful, mighty God has been ingrained in his very being and expressed any human being feels this need, and at one time or another, starting from being a baby and being needing parental care, until this parental care diminishes little by little, and still he always fear famine, the need of God for food, for providence, for shelter, for life in general, the oxygen, breathing, and there is a connection between man's life and the unseen. The unseen in terms of you are not existing. There is a time in man, there was a time where when we as each individual of us as a human being did not exist, materially speaking. His existence started with the fusion, of the sperm with the ovum and the development of the fetus, until his mother gave birth to him, and then he starts his life on earth. So life started in the womb of a woman, from a single fertilized ovum cell, fertilized by the sperm, a single cell, male cell, fusing with a single female cell, and then both cells together fuse and become one single cell called the zygote, and this zygote started to divide into two cells, and the 2 will give 4, and the 4 give 16, and the 16 give 46, and however, until this multicellular being develops in the fetus and become born. So practically speaking, he's always connected with with a life or a conception of existence or pre-existence, and after death there is his life of man is conceived as by himself, must have been conceived as a period that has a starting and an end. So what about before and after? From where he came? And so these questions are always part of the unseen, the unexperienced, the things that we cannot comprehend by the mind, but maybe we can approach with our heart. They are not totally inconceivable, but they tend to take different shapes and different dimensions depending on how we nourish them, or what aids do we and what are the paths and the aids and the lines that one takes to approach these this other existence outside that is controlling and obviously controlling, taking control of the universe and the birth of galaxies and the birth of stars and the birth of planets and the birth of solar systems and this the birth of or the creation of water and life and other forms of life that we might not we might not be able to conceive. Our life is obviously connected with water. This planet, life on this planet is possible because of the existence of water, and nobody can conceive a living being or a living animal or plant, any living being, living matter that exists on Earth at least. This life cannot be conceived without water. So water is essential element in our even temporal existence. So man looks, man in his religious thought was compelled to think beyond his body, beyond going outside the body and outside the planet and outside the solar system, outside the universe. And now there are theories about multi-universes. It's not only one universe, but there are several. So and according to the Big Bang theory, which nobody lived at that moment, but it is conceivable through physics and through mathematics and through mental abilities. Man came to believe, or came to prove, at least using his mental abilities for proving and proving these hypotheses or these observations, يعني making decisions about يعني collecting data and then يعني observing and collecting data and critically examining it and subjecting it to tests and experiments and then arriving to conclusions. So the man has concluded that life started, life in the universe, يعني the life of the universe, not the life on Earth, يعني, in terms of living beings or plants and animals. The beginning of the universe started with the Big Bang. So Big Bang يعني is the initiation of the existence that we know of, and this existence is in يعني we conceive it in two dimensions, time and space. So these two dimensions, space and time, we cannot conceive any existence, material existence, so to speak, except through these two dimensions, space and time. So if you are يعني to say that time and space were born at the moment the Big Bang happened, so يعني we can say يعني philosophically we can say that before the Big Bang happened there was no time and there was no, at least for us, there was no time and there was no space. So space and times are just an idea in our mind due to our limit, يعني we are prisoners of our conceptions which are confined to the borderlines of the Big Bang. Outside the Big Bang we have no idea. Starting for the Big Bang we are trying to have some idea. So why would the Big Bang happen? If it happened at a certain time, why did it happen before, and why didn't happen after? So يعني this needs, يعني this compels us to say that there is a choice that has been made, a decision. Could the Big Bang choose for itself when to initiate? If this was possible, why haven't it? يعني now that scientists say that it started at a certain point, why didn't it start before? We know that in a chemical reaction, يعني you add something, يعني A to B, and in the presence of a catalyst or favorable condition, this يعني whether they are physical or chemical or conditions like an electric spark, or if it's a light reaction or a dark reaction, يعني whatever, or a temperature. So at a certain temperature or certain conditions, these two reactants come to react together and give the new. So if we're going to think about the Big Bang as happening, there are elements coming together, and so there must be somebody who conducted this. يعني if it's يعني if we compare it to an experiment or a chemical reaction where there are reactants and the conditions, so obviously it did not happen before because these conditions were not present, and obviously it happened when the conditions were favorable. So who يعني mentally and logically there must be somebody who, an interference of a kind. So this interference is an intelligent interference of a supreme and intelligent mind, a great man, and this mind is God. This is my it's not my only many people will endorse my idea, and I'm not claiming that it's exclusively mine. The wordings might be mine, and the presentation might be mine, but this, many people of many faiths would agree with all what I have said until now. Now that God, we're going to review the man, his thought, his religious thought. So we were saying, why did man need? Why does man need to believe, or what makes man believe, a believer? Like I said, man lives temporarily, and we can compare him like a swinging, fluctuating pendulum that is connected with the string, and at some point the string will be cut and the pendulum will stop. So this fluctuating, or this moving pendulum to the right and to the left during its life needs an energy to move. So this energy is sought through providence and through human activity. And man gets sick, and man gets weak, and man needs to sleep. So all these weaknesses compel man to seek greater power, and this power, he does not find it in the material world around him. He might find it. He might fear fire and avoid it. He might fear a falling mountain, or havoc, or he might fear an earthquake. So these phenomena also threaten his life, volcanoes and landslides and all these types of natural catastrophes he needed to avoid, and he thought that behind all these must be some spirits that control it. So they always sought people who studied the development of religion would tell you that this is how man started to think about things. And also the sun and the rain and the storms and the thunder, and so behind every phenomena they had a spirit behind it, controlling it. So there was the god of the sun, and the god of the moon, and the god of thunder, and the god of lightning, and the god of the rivers, or the rivers, the god of the mountain, and so on. Also animals like the lions and the snakes and all these beasts threatened his life, and they always tried to avoid such threat. So they also believe that there are some spirits that are in control of these animals and the crops, and so man in his development, this is the primitive thoughts of religion. They would tell you, those people dealing with the development and the beginnings of men's thought with regards to religious thought and thinking about the deity and God, started, and the worship would include يعني praising and invoking and asking and seeking refuge and sacrifice, يعني giving sacrifice, making sacrifices of animals and or plants in such a mode so that the gods would be pleased with whatever you present and gift for them, and the situation would get better, and they would people would because naturally every volcano will stop after some time, and the earthquake likewise, and the fire would be put out and whatever. So they thought that that's why these spirits or these gods behind this phenomena are really in control, because they have answered their demands and they have fulfilled their requests. So that's the primitive way of thinking. But the Quran has come to tell us that man has been has one parent, that is Adam, and this man was a believer, and he believed in one God, and his spouse Eve also witnessed this witnessed this faith, the faith of the faith in one and only the faith in one and only God of the universe. So how come, this is the question that comes again, pops every now and then, how come men became so distanced and so apart from and what took this belief from him? Well, like I will tell you that man, we all know that man forgets, tends to forget, and even in your life you make the same mistake. We call it sometimes silly mistakes, but they sometimes these silly mistakes lead to catastrophic consequence. They have very drastic influences on our lives. They might, and you keep on repeating the same silly mistakes, and the reason for falling in this, repeating this mistake, is that you forget. And even if you're not forgetting 100%, man has this negligence, or out of negligence he tends to underestimate situations, and thereby it's the same outcome. If you forget or neglect, the outcome could be the same. So in his long history, man, and with the separation of communities, when the continents became apart, that's one, the climatic and the geographical topography of the earth, how the continents separated human communities. It separated experiences, and it's separated, and there has been a discontinuity. Following this separation of human communities, this as a consequence of this separation is a discontinuity in heritage, and a discontinuity, يعني the grandfathers and the forefathers become deprived from giving their ideas, religiously or otherwise, and experience to their offsprings, if their offsprings for some reason become separated from them. So the new generations become lack and become deprived from the knowledge, the religious knowledge of their forefathers, and whether what they held was correct or corrupted or true or untrue. This is how religion sprang out. Several religions sprouted and sprung in as a result of this separation, and as a result of the new generations formulating their own out of forgetfulness and neglect and separation. These three factors: forgetfulness, and negligence, and geographic separation, have led to the differences in religions. This is what, and consequently, then came the starting from Noah, post-Noahic religions, starting from Noah, he revived this. There were prophets before Noah, and there were prophets after Noah. So, speaking about the prophets after Noah, the milestones are Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. These five figures in humanity, in the history of monotheism. These are the five most prominent prophets, or five most prominent religious leaders that formulated the belief of those who believe in one and only God. And this story could take much more time. I just want to shed light on the idea of primitive religion, and how primitive religion came to be primitive, in spite that the pioneer Adam, the very first, if you're going to say prehistoric, he is the most ancient, and he's the first of all humanity. He's the one who has had the pure idea of monotheism, and his offspring should have been aware, and should have the knowledge of the oneness, and they should have practiced or believed in monotheism in its purest form, being taught. But like I said, man forgets, man neglects, man gets separated geographically, and thereby there occurred a disconnection between the forefathers and their teachings with the offspring, the descendants. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. All praise belong to Allah, and may the peace, blessings, salutations of Allah be upon His Prophet Muhammad, his household, his companions, his followers, and all those who befriend him. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.